So time to introduce my second uploaders of the night. Duo, lined up and sitting ready. Two very good-looking men, good-looking studios. I feel like I'm the spare wheel in this one. All right. So firstly, thanks for your uploads, Paul and Phil. How are you both keeping?
Hey, really well, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thank you for being on the show, gents. It's a pleasure to have you both on. I guess we probably have to work out how on earth you two came to be together to produce us this track we're going to play tonight. So, Phil and Paul, how did you meet?
Who's that? Who is that?
I've already detected there's a lot of tomfoolery when music is made between these two.
Listen, music is life. Music is love. You've got to enjoy it. Otherwise, there's no point.
Yeah.
So, hey.
How long have you been musicians for individually? Let's start there, and then we'll see where the journey collides.
So, yeah, let me quickly start with my story. So I started DJing in 1988. And then I started producing music in 2010 and released a few tracks. And then I was working I live in Great Totham, and the pub that I used to work at, the Bull, Phil was singing in the back. And I heard of him. I'd heard people talking of him. And I poked my head through the door one night and heard him singing. And he was just doing a warm-up, and he was absolutely incredible. I fell in love with him straight away. And then when I got chatting to him afterwards as well, I fell in love with him all over again. He's like the warmest man you'll ever meet. But yeah, Phil, when did you start singing? I don't even know that answer.
Oh, about 3 o'clock. My neighbors keep telling me to stop. You know what, Rob Jelly? Never believe a drunk bartender.
I tend not to believe anyone who's had a few sherbets, if I'm honest, Phil.
No, I've been singing all my life. It's funny because an aunt of mine reminded me that when I was 2 and she used to babysit me, that I would stand in front of the TV and I would do my little shaky and sing, and she used to call me a show-off. So I've been singing all my life, but full-time I started in 2001/2. Used to live in New York, hence an accent. Born in London, moved to New York, raised, and I'm just who I am, and that's great. But went through September 11th. Used to work for an investment bank, lost some colleagues and such, and then left that life and decided to pursue my passion, and became full-time in 2002 as a musician, and learned music therapy and Reiki and the power and the importance of music. And I've grown up with music all my life. My mom used to sing. She was very operatic. I used to play the violin. My brother is a musician who works with a young kid named Ed, who has become Ed Sheeran and such. So
never heard of him.
Yeah, no. So there's been music in and around my life all the time. And, when life presents an opportunity or says, look, do it or die, I was raised, do it. So I just kind of pursued the passion, took the bull by the horns, and 2002 became full-time musician, and it's been an amazing experience.
See, I want to touch on the fact that you mentioned a bit of music therapy in there as well. I've always been a strong believer of the fact that music is one of the most powerful things there is. It certainly is in my life. It's the reason I'm sat here today. If it wasn't for me growing up with records from Genesis back in the late 80s and early 90s, I wouldn't have loved the drums. I wouldn't have had drum lessons at school. I wouldn't have gone on to study music, GCSE and A-level. I wouldn't have gone on to university. I wouldn't have found radio. I wouldn't have pursued this insane job for the best part of 14 years, and I wouldn't be sat here talking to you now. And I truly believe that it's music that caused me to be sat here tonight having a chat with you about it. And Paul, you mentioned that you were DJing back in the late 80s, and then it was all the way until 2010 before you start producing your own. But you cannot possibly keep doing something for that long if you don't have a core passion for it. So whether you're a painter, a poet, or a musician, or any other creativity, if it's your passion, just go with it.
Yeah, like you guys said, it's inside you. That's it. You can't just get rid of it. It's there. It's your passion, and that's what makes you tick. Yeah.
All right. So take it back. Go on, Phil.
One of the things that did connect us when we started to talk about music that we like and love. I mean, when Paul met me, I was performing a Luther Vandross show, because I do a Spirit of Luther show, and I do it all over Essex, but also all over the world, Dubai and places like that, New York. But Paul started to mention some house, because I'm a bit of a house music lover, but then I also grew up with people like the Bay City Rollers, Nat King Cole, so I'll do everything from Nat King Cole and Frank Sinatra, singing Hebrew for weddings and such, which is great. Was a member of the Drifters for a bunch of years, so do a bit of Motown, but then house music is like Carnival, Caribbean background, Carnival, release. And he started to mention some house tunes. And he started mentioning things that, how do you know that? You're in England.
Yeah, we talked about
Frank. That's not a song that I've ever heard here. And then he went to the next one. I'm like, how do you know that one? He goes, you know it too? I'm like, dude, that's a New York song. What you talking about? So that's, and then it just,
Yeah,
so,
we were talking about Frankie Knuckles. It was Tears. Yeah.
Yep.
Frankie Knuckles is a name that has not been mentioned for too long.
Exactly. And when I was younger in New York, I used to go clubbing, and I used to go to places where he would play, and I would sing my butt off, and every once in a while I'd go up to the DJ booth and I'm singing, and he'd amazing.
The drunk guy's back again. He's back again. He's singing down the front. He thinks I'm a backing singer. I don't know what's going on. Bill, what were you playing? I mean, as a DJ in the late 80s and 90s and such, were you just playing sort of like the commercial stuff, the pop stuff, or were you focused on a more sort of specialist genre?
Yeah, no, I was playing house music. So I was one of the first DJs in Colchester to play house music. There wasn't any bars then that had DJs in. I used to work in a bar called Palms Wine Bar, and that was one of the first. And I used to go to London every week to Black Market Records, and I'd buy my US imports for like £10 a track, where you'd only get one or two tracks on there, and you'd pay a tenner for it, And then I'd be so excited on the train back, looking forward to playing them that night, and playing music that people had never heard of in England. It was all tracks from the US. And this was just as house music broke. So yeah,
that bamboozles me somewhat, because I know it's my job as a radio presenter to bring people, the new music that's out and play the stuff we love to hear over and over again, of course. But I can't imagine ever having the audacity to actually say, this song that none of you have ever heard before is going to blow your mind.
I know.
Listen to this.
Yeah, but it was things like Lil Louis, French Kiss. Frankie Knuckles, Tears, things like that, Stacker, Humanoid, all of those kind of, massive track. Alison Limerick, Where Love Lives, things like that. It was just so exciting.
But we know for a fact that sometimes a song just doesn't stick. You can we could sit here all night and go through lists of songs or bands or artists that we absolutely love in our own personal collection that we would love the rest of the world to know about.
Yeah.
But for some strange reason, they just don't fit the mold in that moment. There's loads of musicians that have been around for years and years and years, and it's taken them forever to break through to that commercial sort of sort of space. The easiest one to think of is David Gray. It was his 7th album that Babylon was on. He'd released 6 albums before it, and nobody had given a hoot about David Gray. He writes one song called Babylon, a couple of people play on the radio, and he's like the biggest thing since sliced bread. And that's just one example, and there are thousands more. But just the bravery to be able to bring that new music into the country and then bring it to Essex and try it out in a scene where even just your presence as a house DJ is a brand new idea as well. It's just... It's mind-blowing.
No, it was incredible. It was such an exciting time. It was so good. People still recognise me now in the street when I go back to Colchester. People still talk about that time, and it's so exciting. When I think about all the places I've played, like Ibiza, Miami, Amsterdam, and all these places, people still talk about that place in Colchester. It was really, really exciting.
I feel really unimportant now. The most places I've played is this room and that room over there. Unreal. Miami, Ibiza, Studio 1 and Studio 2 in Chelmsford. That's the extent of my radio life so far. We'll have Paul and Phil back in a jiffy, and I shall share with you their track My Heartbeat on BBC Essex. Well, we have our second uploaders of the night, Mr. Paul Hutchinson and Fil Straughan, bringing us a track called My Heartbeat. So, gents, where did this birth from?
Well, this is a track that I produced without any vocals, and I sent it to Phil and he wrote the vocals for it and sent them back to me, and straight away that was it. I was in love with it. It was just, it's one of my favourite tracks. It's really weird. I don't play many of my tracks when I'm actually out, and this is one that I started playing about a year ago again, and it had a great response from people. That was one of the reasons why I decided to put it on the album and release the album again. So, yeah.
When you were playing it out and about, were you playing it with lyrics, or was this pre-lyric?
No,
version?
with lyrics, yeah, always with lyrics, yeah.
And do you always, I guess, having worked together for quite a while, the two of you, you bounce ideas off each other, you'll always give each other like constructive feedback, I imagine. But do you always send stuff with the aim of getting some lyrics back, or is it sometimes just to get an opinion on it, Paul?
With Phil, it's always to get the vocals, because I just know it's a track that's suited to Phil. So, and he's just so quick at coming up with vocals. I don't know how he does it. Like we're literally today, we've been working on a track, our new track, which is going to be later this year. And the way he works is just incredible. I don't know how he does it.
How long does it take from start to finish? Once you sit down, you get a new idea, you maybe lay a beat down, or you get a sort of idea for the bass line or something like that. From that sort of moment onwards until it's finished and ready to go to Phil for a bit of lyrical inspiration, how long would that process on average be?
Yeah, on average, it's a couple of weeks probably for me until I'm happy enough to send it to him. And then once the vocals come back, then it's, probably another week's worth of work getting the vocals to sit right. And then it's backwards and forwards between the two of us until we're both happy with it. But yeah.
And Phil, when it comes to sort of receiving something from Paul or just hearing something brand new, are you often is your brain often just hearing an immediate idea? Or do you kind of sit on it for a couple of days before you start penning something?
No, quite often the idea will come immediately. And quite often I'll get a lyric idea and a melody. So they tend to come together. I don't question.
Yeah.
I just allow. And then I'll sit on it for a couple of days. I mean, if it's really strong and I wake up and it's repeating on me, then I know it's the right thing. And if not, then I'll kind of throw down a few different ideas. Like I'm driving down the street, for example, and all of a sudden I've got to pick up my phone and start singing, or I'll wake up in the middle of the night, no word of a lie, wake up in the middle of the night and I've got a melody idea, or, that's how the line is going to be finished, And so I let it be. I mean, one of the things I learned in architecture school, because I went to Cornell for architecture, and one of the things you've got to do is if you're working on a piece of sculpture, you've got to let it tell you what it wants to be, and you've got to listen and be responsive. And so everything, I think, has a spirit. So give me 3 words, Rob Jelly.
Window.
Words.
Window. Line.
Dolphins.
Yeah, go on then. Dolphins. I wasn't going to try and be quite random, but window, line, and dolphins.
Okay, so something along the lines of, when I look out of my window down the street today, I see the sun. When I'm looking out my window down the street today, I see a line of people having fun. And they're seeing dolphins and porpoises, and they're seeing the whales, they're seeing everything. They're seeing boats with sails, and we'll float, float, float away, yes, and we'll float, float, float away. So something like that.
Well, it doesn't matter what I do from now until the end of time. Nothing that talented will ever come out of my head.
I mean, that's rough. That's random, but it can be developed.
No, I really genuinely got to, and I stopped looking at you deliberately, Phil, for a moment, because I wanted to sort of hear and feel it coming out. And you're right. You let your brain expand, and I could. When you introduced the line of people, I thought they're looking at the dolphins, they're looking at sea, and then there's all the other animals. And actually, I could almost mildly predict where your brain was sort of going as well. That visualization, as you say, you're just letting it be what it needs to be. And if it sits and it sticks and it's right first time, fantastic. If it's a rough patch, it's fine. Okay, stick it down and we'll tweak it and we'll go from there.
I mean, it's oral visual. It's oral visual storytelling. So.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I've ever told Paul this, but the song Heartbeat, Paul got married a few years ago to the love of his life. Karen is absolutely awesome. And I knew them before they were married, and I had the wonderful, wonderful honor of singing at their wedding, and working with some other fantastic people at their wedding. It was an amazing experience. And the lyrics for Heartbeat came from Paul and Karen's relationship, and she's his heartbeat and he's hers. And, you know, he talks about her and he smiles, and she talks about him and she smiles, and the heartbeat goes like boom, boom, boom. And, you know, so that's, you know, she gives him energy, he gives her energy, and that's where those lyrics came from for that song, Paul.
Love
So
it.
it's the story of your love.
Love it.
Who says we don't make happy memories on this show? I like it. So
It's turned all red, look!
yeah, he's got all bashful now. I'll allow you some cooling down time. You've got an album. It's coming out tomorrow.
Yeah, launches tomorrow on TrackSource, and then comes out a week later on the 5th of Feb on iTunes.
Awesome. And what's it called?
It's called Looking Back. So it's the last 10 years of music that I've created.
Awesome stuff. Well, Phil and Paul, it's been a pleasure having you on the show tonight. Genuinely think we could talk all night about music, and maybe another night we shall arrange a bigger slot for us to do so. But right now I want to get on people what you sent us tonight, which is My Heartbeat. So, Paul, as it is your song, it's written for you, as it were, and by you as well. Would you introduce it to me for the rest of the county?
Okay, so playing this for my wonderful wife, Karen, Paul Hutchinson, and the incredible Fil Straughan. This is My Heartbeat.
You guys are amazing. Thanks so much for coming on the show, gents.
Thank you, mate.
Treat, real pleasure. And that's a promise. I'm getting you guys back on to talk music another time.
Yeah, it'd be wicked. Yeah, and we'll talk American football as well.
Well, you know. Well, you know it's the Dolphins. Then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have your contact details?
Yes, I believe you do. But if you look on the Zoom invite, go on, you good. On the Zoom invite, my email address should be on the bottom of it.
Cool.
But if you want to grab it anyway,
Go for it.
It's just rob.jelly
Uh-huh.
at bbc.co.uk.
Okay, fantastic.
Jelly like the food.
Yeah.
All right, fantastic. Because we've got some other stuff coming out, and I'm working with other people.
Yeah, anything you guys are doing and making and such you want to share this way, I'd be happy to have it on the show and have you back on to talk about it in the future. So that'd be amazing.
That'd be great. Thank you, mate.
Gents, have a great week, end of the week. Take care of yourselves.
Cheers, Rob.
So blessed. Thank
See you
you.
soon.
Bye, mate.
Bye for
God
now.
bless.
All right.